got Jeremy McGinty. He is a air traffic controller from the military and also with the FAA. And Jeremy, thanks for doing this. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Oh, everything is good, man. I appreciate you coming onto the platform. So the basic premise of the platform is to kind of like highlight individuals' journeys as far as stuff that they did in their early years to kind of prepare them to like certain decisions that they made to kind of like make them more successful, later in life. So that's why I want to like highlight and interview individuals on how they kind of did it and get them, give the audience some nuggets of how they kind of like, follow that kind of trajectory.
Right, sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
fun to
Cool.
be here.
Yeah. So how was well, first of all, how's the family? How's the wife and kids?
Good, they're good. Gosh, we just did our 15th anniversary. Liz and I have now been married that long. It seems it's gone by so quick, and it always feel like the last because Winnie's 9 now, and then Isla's 6. So it seems like the past 9 years have just flown by. So it's fun how it all creeps up on you like that. But they're good. The both the girls are in school and doing well, and it's fun to see them grow up and start doing all the you see the math problems and studying for capitals, and it's just you think back to when you were a kid, and it just kind of comes full circle. And you I found myself a couple times, oddly enough, as they've been growing up, having those going back to school dreams, you know what I'm talking about? Where it's just like
Mm-hmm.
you have that dream you're back in school and it's more like a nightmare, and you wake up and you're like, oh gosh, I'm so glad I don't have to go to school, but I do have to go to work in a little bit. But no,
Yeah,
they're
that's
doing
true.
good. They yeah, enjoying school. I am making good friends. I think that's the fun part of it, is watching them make their friends. And they're both very social, so their social circle is growing, so which is fun. It's fun to watch.
Awesome, appreciate that. And my wife and I, we're gonna hit 10 years in September of this year. So we probably gonna
Okay.
end up doing like a cruise. So maybe like a week-long cruise. Because I never did a cruise
Yeah.
before. So kind
Yeah,
of
they're
looking
they're a
forward
good
to that.
time, but yeah, absolutely. It's one of those, bucket list items. You find out if you like it or love it. I like them. I do like getting on the cruise and heading out, but I always find getting off at the ports and doing stuff. I don't know. I feel bad because I think that it exploits the people there. You know what I mean? Like it's fun to go and
Mhm.
kind of travel around the boat and see stuff, but I don't know. I feel kind of bad. But they are
Oh
fun.
yeah. Yeah, awesome. Okay. Yeah. That's kind of unfortunate, but it's kind of above my pay grade as far as to understand the whole economics of okay, if they don't
Yeah.
have the cruises, then what type of impact would it have on the locals for that
Right,
location?
right.
So but yeah, okay. Yeah. I mean I want experiences to kind of say that I did it and go from there.
Yeah, we went to the Southern Caribbean, and it was fun. It was saw a lot of cool places. I mean, we've been on a couple of them, but the Southern Caribbean I think was very interesting. It's not like Dominica, Grenada, Grenada. I'm not sure exactly how to say it, but places like that you wouldn't necessarily touch on the traditional cruise. You get to that
Mhm.
Southern Caribbean, but we had to go out of Puerto Rico, I think. 'Cause, yeah, we went out of Puerto Rico for that one before the kids. Before the kids.
Oh, awesome. Okay. And I see that you got a Chiefs hat on and kind of explain
Oh
to the
yeah,
people as
yeah.
far as like your upbringing, you're from Kansas City. So what was it like growing up in Kansas City?
Yeah, I loved it. I go back now, and I've lived outside of Kansas City longer than I lived there. So I left there at around 18, and I've been gone over 18 years. So when I go back, it's changed so much, but I think it still has that smaller, big city feel that I
Mhm.
kind of you don't know it until you leave it. And being in Chicago, it's so massive, and I feel like I could live here for 20 more years and not necessarily kind of know where everything is. Like I'll meet somebody on. We went to Florida recently, and that somebody said they were from Tinley Park, and I have to like think. I'm like, is that what suburb is that? Like it's so spread out. So I kind of miss that smaller kind of city feel that I can almost when somebody says where something is, like, oh, that's over, off of 95th and Metcalf, and I like know where that is in Kansas City, so I miss that. But so yeah, growing up in Kansas City was a smaller town feel. Um, I mean, I grew up back in when the Royals were, and in the 80s, you had George Brett, Kevin Seitzer, David Cohn. I mean, there was like baseball was still a big deal when I was growing up, and they kind of fell off.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Chiefs have always just been part of my upbringing. I think I want to say it was 12 or 13 is when we first got season tickets to the Kansas City Chiefs, and my mom has kept them. She still has them, and I don't know if I told you this before. This was her. She wrapped up her NFL stadium tour where she's been to all the stadiums that the Chiefs, they've played the opposing team, but she wrapped up. It was the Minnesota Vikings was the last one this year. She had to go to kind of hit all the stadiums in the NFL. So she finally wrapped that up. So I always say she's a bigger Chiefs fan than I am, but no, I,
Oh,
I
that's
liked it.
amazing.
I loved growing up. Yeah, I know, right? That's a huge feat, and it's taken her, I want to say 20 some odd, maybe 25 years. I'd have to check it, but her, her on the road record for wins and losses, she definitely had more losses than she did wins because she's until the recent years with getting Mahomes and Andy Reid over there, it wasn't so great traveling, but no, I do. I miss it. I love Kansas City. It has a special place in my heart, but I go back there now, and it's hard to recognize things. A lot of things have changed and evolved, but it's a great city. It's a great town to go to and visit and barbecue. I miss the barbecue. That's huge. Just like you guys would miss pizza up here if you go somewhere else, and the Italian food is not as prevalent down there, as tasty as it is up here. There's just something about those big cities that have their own flair.
So Kansas City is known for their barbecue.
Oh yeah, it's more of the sweet, the sweet sauce, the smoke and sweet sauce to it. Whereas
Okay.
like Memphis has like the rub, and the Carolina style is more of like a vinegar base, stuff like that. They're all great. I mean, I'm not gonna step away from a table with barbecue at it, but it's just that's kind of what I grew up with, and to go and have anything other than that, like I think a lot of places up here, if there is a barbecue place, they will have different, like, oh, I'll get the Memphis style or the Carolina style. They'll have different stuff that you can choose from. But in Kansas City, it's more, you'd be hard pressed to find something that had, the Carolina style or just a straight up Memphis rub instead of being smothered in some sticky sauce.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I gotta show you something real quick. I just got this for my Secret Santa. It's like a little scratch off for like all NFL stadiums.
Oh
So I'm kind of
yeah,
jealous of your mom since she been to all the
yeah,
stadiums because
yeah,
that's kind of a bucket list for me.
yeah.
Upon upon retiring, I would like to for like maybe 2 or 3 years travel wherever the Bears go to.
hmm
So that's hopefully I can kind of accomplish that. But
Well, and I think
it's definitely
now
doable.
the the one thing I will say that I think she really misses was when she first started it, were the hard tickets. So when she would go to the stadium, she'd always have the hard tickets she'd hold on to. But now it's all digital. And like I don't even
Oh,
think she
okay.
has the programs anymore. Like they don't she used to buy the game day programs at the stadium for all the places you go to have. So the like little mementos that you would have like as a piece of history, she doesn't have anymore, because I had always thought it would be really cool, because she has like a little bar downstairs in her basement, would be to take all of her tickets and then put them in a like
In a
almost in
frame or
that
something.
like a vinyl, well, something to like put them all down on the surface, and then have that, what is it, I'm a blank for words, but it's like the poly whatever stuff to pour over it, and then have all of the tickets underneath, like something that she would always have. But yeah, they stopped doing it. I want to say like 5, 6 years ago, where everything was digital.
I'm probably gonna butcher it, but it sounds like some polyurethane or like some resin,
Yeah, yeah,
something like that.
polyresin. There we go. Yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
but
Okay, yeah.
yeah, they don't do them anymore. So they kind of shot that idea when she got it all done. So we got to do something special for her. My brother and I need to get together and figure out something to do. I always thought that it'd be cool for her, like, when the Chiefs have obviously made the Super Bowl, but once she wrapped up all the stadium tours, if they made the Super Bowl again, to try and see if I could get, write some story to, CBS or whoever's hosting the Super Bowl, to say, hey, this is a cool story, and she hasn't been to a Super Bowl game yet, even though I told her, like, you need to go spend the money.
Mm,
Like, you only live once, but to try and see if
yeah.
she could get some story and then try to get to the game, be kind of cool.
I I believe CBS is gonna broadcast it this year.
Yeah. I think they kind of
So
flip back
yeah.
and forth.
Yeah, yep, yep. And but what type of work did your parents do growing up?
So my when I was younger, my parents eventually divorced. I think when I was around 5, but when they were still together, my dad did like but kind of like building engineer. He was like the handyman that kind of did everything. He worked on a like a 2 or 3 man crew. They did rotating shifts, kind of like how we do. Like they'd rotate from week to week or month to month, and he did that for a long time. And that was over in Independence, Missouri. He worked over there as like I can't. I drawn a blank on the name of the building, but it was kind of like a medical office building kind of thing. And then my mom had worked as basically like did administrative work for a hospital over there in State Line at St. Joseph Medical Center. So she worked there, and then when they split, um, my dad went down, and my grandparents had always had like a boarding and nursing home that they ran, and they did some in Missouri, but then they eventually went back to Oklahoma. But my grandparents were originally from Oklahoma on my dad's side, so they went down there and opened another place down there and shut the shop up in Kansas City. And when my parents divorced, my dad went down and just lived down there and worked for them. So he did more of like it was taking care of people who with disabilities, it wasn't a nursing home, it was just a boarding home, so kind of families that
Mm-hmm.
had people that had disabilities and such, and they would take care of them there. So he did that for, oh gosh, for pretty much the rest of his most of his life. And then after that, when they passed away and they shut down the business again, he then just went and worked for a bearing company in Joplin, Missouri. And my mom, at around, it was probably around 12 years old, she had left the hospital and went and worked for the Kauffman Foundation. It was kind of an entrepreneurial nonprofit company. And the Kauffman family is the owners of the Royals. So I feel like my mom has always had some type of connection to sports in Kansas City in some way, whether it be football
Mm-hmm.
or baseball. But she did that, and she went over there, and then she did like a lot of grant work for entrepreneurship. So they would have scholars that would come in. Basically, like it would be younger folks that were trying to get into entrepreneurship and had great ideas. So think around the time, especially with the development of smartphones and applications and things like that, there were a lot of folks that had great ideas and would come to her organization and get grants and so forth. And they would give them money to help them get their ideas off the ground, but then also would offer almost like a university style approach to teaching them how to basically get your idea up and running, but then also to keep it running, and how to innovate and motivate your people that you brought on and so forth. So, and she did that up until retirement, and she retired just a few. Gosh, I think she retired in 2022. It was at the end of the pandemic when they're pulling everybody back in the
Mm-hmm.
office, and she was like, "I don't think I want to drive back to work anymore." So she ended up staying home. Like, I'm just going to retire.
Oh wow,
So yeah, she
awesome.
did that. She did that. Yeah, she's loving retirement. So, and who
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't? I mean, try not to smile when you're retired. I think it's impossible.
Yeah. And how many siblings do you have?
So I don't have, I guess what you would call um, full blood siblings. So my parents had prior marriages before I was born. So I had my brother on my mom's side, and then I have a sister on my dad's side, both from previous marriages. So we're kind of like, we're like, I would say like we're like mixed up siblings. We're just,
Mm-hmm.
it feels like we're, full blood siblings, but we're not. My brother and I are closer in a sense of that we grew up together, and then my sister was out in California for the longest time, and I kind of keep sporadic contact with her. She kind of moves around and has family in different places over the U.S. But my brother and his wife, and then their 3 kids, they're in Kansas City, probably just 7 minutes from my mom. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
just
Nice.
the 2 siblings. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And what were you like in high school? What was Jeremy like in high school?
I it's funny how you like you find how when you're in school that how you feel like it defines you, or you have to, this is, you're so worried about how popular you are or whatever, whatever it is. But I really I ran around with everybody. I I I kind of knew everyone, and and pretty much everybody knew me now. And how well I was known in different groups kind of vary, just kind of the different things I was into. But
Hmm.
I was very, very outgoing, always funny, always had a good joke. And believe it or not, I mean, I guess maybe believe it, but I was more so I did the soccer sports freshman sophomore year, and then I just like I don't I hated giving up part of my summer to go in and sweat and run laps all the time, so I stopped that. And then in school, I more so gravitated toward like the theater side of stuff, so I got into I wouldn't do any of the musicals because I could carry a note in the shower, but not
Yeah.
out in public. But
Okay.
so I did more of the acting stuff. So I always did I want to say it was like the spring play. I got involved with that in sophomore, junior, and senior year. So I did that. That kind of was more so what I was into. But I was very I was an average student, very very average. I didn't like school. I didn't, just studying and just wasn't my thing. I didn't want to do it. But then getting out of school and going back to college, after the military and so forth, I definitely went back and I was so hard, or not hard, but had to get straight A's. So I was a vastly
Hmm.
different student from the from after the military than before. So before the military, I was like, it's no big deal. But after, I was like, it's a big deal.
Now, did you get a degree while you were in ATC? Because I remember you was doing some
Yeah,
online courses. You
yeah.
did? Okay.
I took the GI Bill that I got. That and I don't know if you used yours, but I
Hmm.
while
I did.
after getting done with the training in air traffic, I had met my wife after I was done with her the training for on the FAA side. When I met my wife and she was in school, and when we were together, was she would be at my house and just studying. So I figured I could sit here and watch my stuff that I've TiVoed, or I could take advantage of my GI Bill benefits and try to wrap up this college thing that I probably should have done. So that's what I did. I ended up doing online courses and finished up online through the community college out here, and then jumped to a college that I actually had looked at going to when I was back home, but didn't go to, a Columbia College out in Missouri, Columbia, Missouri, and
Hmm.
got the sociology degree there. And then they had a master's program in criminology because I figured I'd go ahead and I was like, oh, I got more of this left. I'll wrap up a master's degree too, and then try to do maybe like an adjunct professor job near the end of my FAA career, or kind of like move that post FAA to do that. But I want to say I got a class or two into the master's program, and they changed the course catalog on me. And so if I wanted to do it, I was going to have to kind of switch some things around, and it was going to take, I think, about an extra year and a half on top of what,
Hmm.
the almost year I put into the first part of the master's degree. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. That's just, I'm already tired. And my wife had finished up her degree, and she was at her internships for her master's program, and I'm like, I don't think I want to do that. So I just stopped,
Yeah.
and I figured the bachelor's and a little bit of master's work is curtains for me. So
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, just like
yeah,
you, man. I had enlisted in the military right out of high school. So just to kind of even reflect back then, like if I was to like decide to go to the military in my mid 20s, I probably wouldn't have did it. But the fact that I made that decision when I was just 17, but
right.
my parents had to sign a contract for me, but I ended up going to boot camp when I was 18 and a half. But the fact that I did it back then, and what I decided back then, it was kind of like propelled me to what I am today. Because when I was in the military, I was able to kind of like work for a general, and I had to get a security clearance, and that
Hmm.
clearance was active by the time I got hired with the FAA. So it was everything kind of aligned for me without me even
Yeah,
knowing it. So
right,
it's
right.
as far as you making that decision to go into the Air Force, like what prompted that back then?
Well, it's a very that is a very interesting story. And so senior year in high school, I had dated somebody for most of my high school career, and we broke up, got back together, and then um, she had was I didn't really, like I said, I didn't really try too hard in high school, and it kind of bit me in the rear end at the tail end of it. So I didn't really have huge college plans, and the person that I was then still seeing, she had decided to go to a school in Springfield, Missouri.
Mhm.
So at the end of the summer, and I had enrolled in community college, and she had headed down to Springfield. I remember going down with her family to kind of drop her off, and it was just like I was, a young kid that's stupid, and all bummed about it. Well, my dad lived in Joplin, which was about a 45-minute to an hour drive to go over to his place, and then I'd stay there for the night and then head back home. So I had left there, went to see my dad, and we were just talking, and he had I had told me I was bummed or whatever. I just kind of feel like I messed up, and I should have did better in school and all that stuff. And he's like, don't worry about it. You're fine. You'll figure it out. And he's like, your grandfather, because his dad, my grandfather was in the army, and he had always said is one of the best decisions he ever made was to go in to the army, and it taught him a lot, and gave him discipline, and then pretty much, I want to say, somehow or another helped him with the business decisions and being disciplined about how to run the businesses they had. And he said it was a great decision. So he said, if you can't figure it out, he's like, look into the military. But he said, your grandfather always said to me that if I was going to go in, that I should go in the Air Force. So he's like, just do like your grandfather told me and just look at the Air Force first. And I was like, okay.
Oh, nice.
So went back home and kind of molded over and wasn't really doing too great in school at the community college. And then finally I just went into a recruiter and talked to him and took the ASVAB score or the test and
Mhm.
got my scores and could pretty much pick whatever I want to do. And two things that jumped out at me were linguist, and then something else that came out was air traffic control. And I wanted to do, somebody else had told me when I was looking into this stuff, that who was prior military Air Force, it said get a guaranteed enlistment. So they'll give you a job and they'll give you a date to go in, and that's your job. Because if you don't go in with a guaranteed job, they can look at your ASVAB and figure out what they need, and they'll just put you into something, and it may not be what you want. And if you
Oh,
have a hard time
yeah.
changing, yeah.
Okay.
So I did that, and then I was like, well, what's this air traffic control thing? And that's when the recruiter had said, oh, at the airport, when you go, you know the big tower that's up there that talks to the planes? And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, yeah. It's like, that's what it is. Like, oh, and just like everybody else with air traffic, as you know, I originally first thought it was, the guys with
Yes,
cone,
yes.
which everybody thinks. So, and I think I even told them that. I'm like, oh, I thought it was, but no. So then I went ahead and did that, and they gave me an enlistment date when I would go, and the rest is pretty much history. And I feel that like there's very interesting things that happen in your life that kind of like set you on a path. And it kind of is weird to think that if you go through the generations of how the advice got kind of passed down, that it started with my grandfather of trying to, you know, of telling my dad, how the military was so great for him to go into, and he didn't regret it, and he was proud to
Mhm.
serve his country, and that my dad should try it and go in. But I think my dad had some issues with his knees and tried to go in. I can't remember what it was, um, but he couldn't enlist. So then he kind of passed that information and knowledge on to me. So it kind of skipped a generation, and it caught me. So that's
Oh,
really
okay.
cool how it kind of,
Okay.
again, how everything kind of comes full circle. And so I kind of thank my dad and my grandfather for kind of steering me in the right direction. And I know that my mom was kind of bitter about the whole thing. I think she even got onto my dad a little bit because she knew we had the conversation, but she didn't know I went and talked to a recruiter. And then pretty much, I think a couple of days after I talked to him, I signed up. And when she got home from work, again, my parents being divorced, my dad was down in Joplin, and I was up in Kansas City. She came home, and I had informed her that I had signed up for the Air Force, to which she had said to me, she's like, well, but you didn't ask me if it was okay. And I believe my exact words to her were, "Well, I'm 18. I don't have to ask you anymore." So she was she was not impressed, and I believe my dad got a phone call shortly thereafter. So
And didn't she
uh,
get over that by the time you had left for boot camp? Or was she kinda bitter still?
yes, I'm not bitter at all, but just more, I think, it all happened so fast.
Oh yeah.
It
Okay.
wasn't something that and now having kids and thinking about them leaving, just, oh, hey, I'm going to be gone in 2 months and there's nothing you can do about it. And I'll be gone for 4 years and I could get sent over into like a conflict zone. I would be a little bit like,
Oh yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry,
I'm sure.
I'm sorry, come again.
Hmm.
So not necessarily bitter, but just I think she was concerned, like a concerned parent, and not really knowing what the future held.
Hmm.
So she was happy for me and glad that I was like starting to make decisions to, kind of find my way through life because she knew that I was frustrated and upset and there was nothing I was going to be able to do about it until I kind of like, basically got up and did something about it.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I had to
Okay.
basically shit or get off the pot.
And how long was your delayed entry program as far as you signing
So
up
that
until you
was,
go to boot camp?
I'm trying to remember. I think I signed in around October of 97, and then February of 98 is when I went to boot camp. So it was about roughly
Okay.
3-ish, 4-ish month. Not too long, but I don't even think they
Okay.
do that anymore. Which for enlistments, which is, I don't know. That's one of the things I've always, when people have asked about the military, I've always told, friends or people asking about it, like, make sure you get a guaranteed job, and I don't think they offer it anymore.
Hmm. I have a my wife's cousin. She just went into the Navy, and I mean, fortunate for her, she had a guaranteed job. I forgot what it was,
Okay, that's good.
but supposed to go to I think Pensacola for MOS. But yeah,
Yep.
sometime later I'll try to get the actual MOS. But I mean, I thought it was pretty cool when I kind of read up on it. So
Yeah. Yeah. That was the only thing, and maybe they've changed it again because I know that it had to have been after. I want to say after 9/11, not 9/11. After I can't remember, but I do remember it at one point somebody was saying that no, you can't. They don't have the guaranteed jobs anymore. I'm like, oh, that was a great
mm,
little perk to try and make sure because to me, I feel like that is more of the draw because I mean, think about it. If you go in and you have the ASVAB scores to do whatever you want, and then they put you in as something you have absolutely no interest in, like, for Air Force, it'd be like, basically the bomb dump where you'd be loading bombs on airplanes. I mean,
mm-hmm.
I'd be like, great, I don't
Yeah,
want to do this. So, but I don't know.
yeah, okay. Where were you stationed at? You were in somewhere in Florida, right?
Yeah, so when you said Pensacola, I basically stayed right on the coast. So, San Antonio, basic, to Biloxi, Mississippi for my tech school. And then from Biloxi, Mississippi, I jumped over to the panhandle of Florida and was over at Eglin Air Force Base.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I mean, it was, everybody, they pick their dream sheet. You have your 1, 2, 3 that you pick. I think I
Mm-hmm.
had Europe, Florida, and California. So I got number two on my dream sheet, and a lot of people didn't get anything on their dream sheet. So I was pleasantly surprised to get Florida. And then Eglin was a very, very busy military training base. So, which tons of restricted airspace, MOAs, and warning airspace, and
Mm-hmm.
altitudes that went from surface to 23 for operating altitudes. And then our warning areas was, we always said they're surface to God when they're active because we just took it all. Um, so, I mean, going from that terminal environment to the center environment, it was a very almost a seamless transition because
Mm-hmm.
we pretty much had the delayed sweeps, and at some points we had extended miles separation because of it so far away from the radar site.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a great base to be at to if you were looking to go from uniform service to civilian service. It was the perfect place to go, and it was busy. You were working heavies with fighters and commercial airlines that were running the coastline across to Pensacola and across to Panama City. descending through. It was busy. It was a great place to be, and then
Mhm.
then it was a spring break catch-all from essentially March till the end of April. You had just people coming down to party all the time, which is, I mean, it was kind of good and bad, but it was tons of fun. Beautiful beaches. I think there's different spots in Florida that have great beaches. I mean, I think the Florida Keys compared to the Panhandle of Florida around Destin, Seaside, and all those places, that Panhandle blows it all away. The sand is like just powdered sugar and emerald light green. It's just beautiful. I almost drove the first time I drove across a bridge on from Okaloosa Island over to Destin. There's a spot under it's just where the sound and the ocean meet, and it was so beautiful. I almost ran my car into the side of the bridge because I was just staring all over the place. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen water wise, at
Wow, interesting.
18, 19 years old,
And how long were you in Biloxi for the MOS school?
So that one was, I want to say, 12 weeks, I think. And the a lot of people got stuck longer in there because you had um you had the tower and radar you had to go through. So the tower side, you had the static lab where it was you basically just moved planes on different sticks along. You stood up in a make believe tower cab and you directed planes, and then your other airmen would go and move the planes, on downwind, on base, and on final. You had the static lab, and then if you got through the static lab, then you would go to the simulator, and they only had one simulator at the time, which was really cool. I mean, think of like IMAX theater, but like for air traffic. It was at least 3 story. I say 3 stories tall, but like 3 levels high of a house, and it was a CGI, or basically make believe tower, and you had a cab that you went up into. And nowadays I look like there's what they have now. I mean, it's nothing, but back then it was fantastic. And so you went through that simulator lab, and that got backed up fairly quickly. So they were running 2 shifts when I was there, and they ended up running 3 shifts, I think, until they got another simulator lab. But
Mhm.
so that was where people got stuck. So that was, I think, 2 or 3 weeks long. And if you didn't get through that, then you'd be awaiting further instructions. But then after you did the simulator portion, then you went for the radar portion. And I want to say that was another, 2 or 3 weeks. But all in all, it was about 12 weeks. I think each one had either 3 or 4 weeks per. You had the classroom portion to learn, static lab, simulator, and radar portion. So about
Okay.
12 weeks. Which, I
And how
mean, if think
long
about that now, could you imagine? Like, think about that, 12 weeks to learn the basics of air traffic. I mean, knowing what you know now and how intricate it is to think this person's going to go through 12 weeks of training, and then we're going to send them to a base where they're going to start working live airplanes. I mean, I know that we
yeah.
didn't like, I didn't go from, Biloxi, Mississippi to Eglin, and they put me right down at a radar scope. We got eased into it, but I don't
Mhm.
know. It just seems so wild now to think it didn't. 12 weeks is not that long. What, 3 months? It's not bad.
Yeah. Trying to remember, like, when we went to OKC, because you didn't have to go to OKC because you already did
Yeah,
that.
we
Okay,
did.
cool.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, you did?
Hmm.
Oh, wow, okay. I thought that some of y'all didn't have to do it since y'all were already kinda like CPC controllers already once y'all got into the FAA.
No, the only ones that I think that were exempt from doing that were the Mark School folks, because they went through the FAA, program for the Mark School, and they could come straight to it. Because, like, yeah, I think that was the only one. Because I know that we went through like a light screening process. It wasn't pass fail when
Mhm,
I went through, but then it transitioned back to pass fail. Um, so yeah, it was. We still had to go, but then all of it, that too, it was essentially exactly what I went through in Biloxi, Mississippi. You went through Point 65 training, and you went through classes of airspace. Like, you went through non-radar training. Well, I mean, as you know, but it was very much similar to what we did at tech school. So it was, you just basically sat there and shook your head and did the worksheets and, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. It was,
Hmm.
but it, basic, the basic or I'm sorry, government way of doing things. Here's what we're going to teach you. Here's what you're going to learn, and then go through it. Here's what we taught you. Here's what you learned. Yeah, it was the same in the military too.
So your whole experience in Oklahoma, it was just a breeze because I mean you already learned literally everything that you needed to know, and then once you went there, you were like pretty much on chill mode, right?
Yeah, and thankfully it wasn't pass fail, but even the non-radar portion that we did, the non-radar problems, we at Eglin, I'm not sure if they still do this, but we had monthly currency on non-radar. Like, we ran non-radar problems every month. You had to go and you would get certified. You would run a problem, a scenario, and then all of a sudden they would just shut the radar off, and you would have to run through, you know, and do it non-radar. Now we had multiple sectors, so it wasn't like you did a non-radar scenario on every single sector, but like, hey, we're going to do non-radar on North this month. Okay, so you'd brush up on your North stuff, and then you'd run that scenario, and then the next month, like, hey, we're going to do arrivals non-radar. Okay, and
Yeah.
so the non-radar portion was, I don't want to say a breeze, but thankfully, having gone through that for so many, I mean, for almost, it was like over 3 years that doing that. It was I was not intimidated by the non-radar at all. I knew the rules and had done it for so long that it was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, I get to actually use this again.
Yeah. Okay. Because that was for me maybe like a 3 or 4 day span in which I thought I couldn't do the job because I
Yeah,
was trying to learn phraseology. I was trying to learn so much thing. Everything was crammed within like a short period of time.
hmm
So there was a point where I'm like, man, I'm not sure if I could do this job. And next thing you
yeah,
know, that light bulb flicked, and then next thing you know, I mean, I was great for the rest of the class. So, but yeah,
hmm
it was definitely challenging as far as the non radar. But other than that, I mean, it
yeah,
was it was pretty much straightforward for me.
yeah. It was, the Oak City training was great. I mean, I feel that the the whole design of it and how they have it laid out was great. Now, obviously, I'm sure that's changed vastly since, but when you and I both went through it, but I found that their pace was fine. The instruction was
Hmm.
great. When you had questions, it was great that you had controllers that were in the center environment that knew what they were talking about and could get really down in the weeds with you if you needed them to explain something to you. So this
Hmm.
basically the subject matter experts that they had there were great and could totally break it down. But I could totally see where if you had no exposure to it at all, as you get deeper and deeper into the mud of ATC, that non-radar stuff that is no joke. Like, those trying
Yeah.
to understand the rules, and it's if you've ever seen that meme of the lady sitting there and there's like all those calculus equations and running,
Oh,
scrolling across, and like you're just looking, like, that's legit how it
yes,
is, because you're just
yes,
like, what am
yeah.
I doing? Yeah.
Because I think half our class was off the street. Because I got hired in '08, and during that time there was
hmm
like a big boom of like hiring just
Right.
people from outside of public. So yeah, I was kind of included up in there, and I mean, I'm fortunate that I went through the whole process with OKC, and then once I got to the center, I had some rough trainers. You know all about them
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
with King Kluge. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but yeah, he actually gave me a good foundation,
hmm
and training with him from like start to finish. I mean, it was just beneficial. So, like
hmm
right now, I'm pretty much on autopilot, just going to work, doing my job, and going home. So I don't really have to
hmm
think about anything no more. So it's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is. Just like, I mean, it's just like a house, you're not gonna have a very sound place to live if you don't have a solid foundation. And those rules and just getting those things totally dug in there and solidified only makes it easier to stack better things on top of it to make the inside or the outside look that much better. And that's really what it is all about. It's amazing how you can have people that will be great trainers, and they'll get folks who don't really care about the foundation or don't put in the effort on as the trainee, and hey, it's your job. If you don't want it, you don't want it. There's still somebody out there that'll replace you that will do good with it. And it really is that getting that solid foundation is so important. But on that too, it's on the trainers too for being able to, yes, the foundation is built, but you got to help somebody put up the framing and put up, the siding. You got to help them build certain parts of it. And then as the person gets done, hey, that second story is going to be on you. Your third story, as it builds up, as you get more and more experience,
Yeah.
that's going to be on you. And it really is nice to go in and kind of really feel like you know it, you're comfortable with it. And I think, like for myself, where I kind of got to in different reasons why I kind of transitioned from the active, working the boards to then moving over to the TMC side, the traffic management side, was I don't I loved it. I still love it. And I think you kind of get to that point where you you are that comfortable, and you not like seek out more, but it's almost gets monotonous. And then you add frustrating things in there where you work with people not necessarily in the area that I worked in with you is a great
Hmm.
area. It's by far one of the best. I still think it's the best area, best people I've ever worked with. But you work with other areas around you and different people who can negatively impact how your job feels to you, just make it more difficult and aren't as accommodating, or don't necessarily have the same professionalism, and that can really start wearing you out and breaking you down. And I feel that's where I got to, where I'm like, I've been doing this for 20 some odd years now, and
Hmm.
I'm starting to like, things are happening that are now I'm thinking about and being angry about and frustrated about on my way home. And
Oh
now it's
yes,
coming home
yes.
with me. I can't, like, as the overtime builds up that we work, and then you add on these other frustrating things, and then just the daily stressors of your life, of things that happen,
Hmm.
and just life, that it was like, I need to make a change, because I want to go back in there and be like, and want to go back there and be happy again, instead of like an 8-hour day feeling like a 20-hour day, and just
Hmm.
everything is just irritating to you. And I feel that's where I got, and I'm like, I need to change, or I need to make a change. And that's where I was like, okay, I need to make a change, because I feel like I couldn't do it because I didn't have the right things happening around me that were going to change how I was feeling. So I'm like, all right, I need to make a move. And I'm happy
Okay.
with it, even though the hours are long, and it's definitely 6-day work weeks all the time, just because the staffing levels are low. But I don't feel that frustration level that I had, and I feel better. But I I still wish I wish I could have taken everybody from the East area with me. Like, all right, guys, we're going on a field trip. We're gonna still
I
go up to
mean,
TMU.
that's the trend. I mean, you all
Yeah,
got a couple people from us, Ian and Jasmine, but
yep,
unfortunately Jasmine came back. But
yeah,
yeah, it seemed like each area is like a stepping stone to like be either a soup or go to TMU. So yeah.
yeah. But I will say, I mean, I know TMU gets a bad rap, and I mean, it just is what it is. I think a lot of people see it when they come up there and see the difference. It's a completely different operation to the job. It is. I mean, there's things that are planned, all the snow we've had around here lately, 12 to 24 hours in advance, but there's so many things that go into it way before. Um, and I do feel like a lot, like we do have some good people up there that have the experience and the know-how of a lot of things that make really good decisions and set things up really well. So it's kind of cool to watch.
Now, I always consider air traffic to be one of the best kept secrets out there because we got a sweet
Hmm.
deal. I mean, obviously, we make good money, and right now we're going through the staffing shortage, and we got mandatory overtime every single week. But like, how was it like as far as like the whole passion of working in ATC while you were in the Air Force?
I It was there, and I think, as you remember from military stuff, I feel like when we go through basic and we then go, there's a sense of almost pride in almost everything, just like,
Hmm.
I always have the pride in the Air Force, and you always have for the pride in the Marines. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
there's something about. that foundation that's built there on kind of like building up, team spirit, so to speak. So I think once you get in your specific codes, or they're AFSC codes for us, Air Force specialty codes. So your job, everybody kind of had some, spirit for where they were, what they were doing. So there was a lot of pride in it, and cockiness to it too, because I do think that as a controller, you have to have a little bit of that, I'm hot
Yeah,
shit to get
yeah,
to get through it.
yes.
Now, whether or not you really are, that's a completely different story. But it takes a little bit of the attitude. So I think you pair that with just the kind of spirit, hoorah, everybody has of being in the military, and that, you
Mhm.
know, it's almost, I think, above what it feels like over in the FAA. And I remember being pulled out of position and just dressed down for not knowing a certain 7110.65 rule,
Mm.
whereas I was so shocked when I got to the FAA side and somebody would be quizzing you in the area on something. And if the person didn't know it, they would just like, oh man, you aren't studying, da 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 da. It was like so much more mild compared to what we faced in the Air Force. Like you were just I mean, you're just totally annihilated and humiliated in the military for not knowing some rule. So there was a lot more of that, type A cockiness, I think, in the
Yeah,
military
yeah,
side.
yes.
But I will say that in the military, there there's nothing like working, a flight of 4 F-15s in an arrival pattern, and they ask for flight split ups in the arrival pattern and to like move everything around and get everybody separated and then, stack a final, and like it all happens so quick that it's very different than what obviously the commercial side of air traffic is. Um, it, don't get me wrong, watching what, C-90 does or the Chicago Tracon does with all the planes that we just shove into their airspaces is definitely intriguing, but it's canned as well. So I mean, hopefully from Chicago Tracon doesn't watch this because I'm not talking smack about what they do. It's very like structured. Whereas, a lot of stuff in the military, it's not structured. There's a way they come in, but there was organized chaos to it, but it was chaotic. So I think
Mm,
on
okay.
that side, the cockiness that I think some of the military controllers have, is interesting because in some cases it's warranted, but it's also not needed once you get out of the military and come to the FAA. You got to kind of relearn to not be that way, because just because you did it over there doesn't mean you're going to do it here. So you got to kind of drop that attitude and just mind your P's and Q's and do your
Mhm.
training and get done. And I always like to say people that you just need to shut up and color right now. You'll finish coloring, but right now you just need to shut up and color and wait till your page is all done.
Now, as far as the military, did y'all have any direct interaction with the pilots as far as with, fighter pilots?
Um, I mean, yeah, just there would be some that would come in, kind of like how we've had the airline pilots come into the center. They would
Yeah.
come in for tours and stuff, and especially if there was like a new fighter squadron, like folks that were transferred in and kind of wanted to come and see the RAPCon. It was funny because it was a terminal radar approach control, but it's a RAPCon is what we called it in the military, just a radar approach control instead of terminal approach control. Um, but yeah, they would come in and kind of meet us and kind of check everything out and kind of get the lay of the land. But we didn't have, definitely not as close as what, let's say, the airlines and the FAA have. Like, for example, there was what was called a SOF, the supervisor of flying. So there would be a pilot that would go up to the tower up at Eglin Air Force Base, and I think they still have this and do it. But when their squadron was going out, they would have the SOF would be up in the tower to kind of monitor and make sure everything was going smoothly, or if they knew what they needed. Because sometimes they would have an odd request that may not make sense to the controller, but it would make sense to the SOF. So the soft could kind of be like that mediator that would kind of let the people know, like, hey, here's what's going on, or even on is really very beneficial for like emergencies coming out of the warning airspace, the restricted areas. They would have a direct channel and frequency that they would call and talk to the SOF and kind of give them all the information, and then they could relay that to air traffic more clearly if it wasn't necessarily making complete sense on what the emergency was, what they needed, where the fire crew needed to be, and stuff like that.
Okay. What I was imagining was like if someone had gave bad service to a pilot, and then the pilot, once he landed on the ground, would just go up to the tower and just, and just chew out whoever controller was giving them bad service. That's what I was thinking about.
No, it would, but that's where the SOF would come in. So the SOF, if
Okay.
there was an issue, they could relay it to the SOF, and then the SOF could have that conversation. And it was rare that we ever had anything that was really, glaring or an issue. I mean, for the most part, things happen so fast that no, we never really had too many issues. There was minor things here and there, but kind of like the same thing with what we have in the FAA is it's usually an email or a phone call or some type of
Mhm.
correspondence happens, and then tapes were pulled, and then they'd review it that way. Kind of the same thing, like a QA QC kind of thing would look at it, and then you would get a talking to if something happened. But it wasn't like where you have in Top Gun where they buzz the tower, and the
Mhm.
pilot gets chewed out by his commander. Nah, it's nothing like that. It would make
Mhm.
sense that you would think that, but it didn't happen like that. Because I mean, the other thing too is when you think of rank in the military, you just are always supposed to observe rank, and it's you respect the person above you and don't backtalk them. And but I would be sitting in a rival's position, and if the South controller in the military was feeding me the stuff coming out of the water, if they were feeding me a bunch of junk, I could just yell over to them and not dress them down, but like, hey, what the hell are you doing? And you wouldn't get in trouble for
Mm.
that because in every sense of what you think the military is, like that's a huge sin, but not when
Right.
when you're in the radar room. Don't feed me crap. I don't want to say
You
anything.
all this goes out the window once you're on the scopes then,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah. But if you go out back and you're having a smoke, like, how you doing, sir?
Yeah. Okay, okay. And, once you got to Chicago from, well, as far as first going to Chicago, why wasn't, like, the need to go to Kansas City to, like, transfer? Just
Well,
curious.
so beggars can't be choosers when you was looking for the job. I was always told when you get an offer, you take it. Like just take
Right.
it. And the offer came out, and it was I bid for it was a Great Lakes region bid. So I think I could have gotten Minneapolis, Indy, Cleveland, or Chicago. And so when I got the call, that's what they offered me. And Kansas City was in the central region at that point. So I didn't even apply up. They didn't have an opening. They didn't have a bid that came out. So they just said, "Well, do you want to go to Cleveland or Chicago?" And I figured Chicago was closer to my hometown than Cleveland, so I was like, "Oh, I'll go to Chicago." So I picked Chicago with the hope of at some point maybe getting back down to Kansas City. It just never panned out, but I think I had there was somebody who I was possibly working like a transfer or swap request with, but it's going to be like a three-way swap. I think there was going to be somebody that had to go to Salt Lake, and yeah, it was like something like that. There was to be a three-way swap, and the person never kind of panned out. And then I met my wife, and then once I met her, I was like, well, I ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Yeah.
I almost got you, for an hour, so I just got a couple more things. So, like, if you was to try to sell someone who was interested in the air traffic, like, what would be, like, your elevator pitch to sell the career to someone who's interested?
That's an interesting one because I know I've had people talk about that recently, not recently, but it's hard because I do feel that it's changing, and it's a lot more automated, and it, it's it's going to be different, I think, when in the next like 20-25 years. But I always say, if you're willing to, it's a great job. I know I
Mhm.
said taking work home with me in a sense of like need to make a change, but there's not one piece of work you can take home with you. You go in, you do the job, you're done, you go home. There's no homework. It's great for that. And I truly believe that, like you said, it's a job that you can, it has a pension, it has great benefits, but with its downsides, everything there's a cost benefit. If they don't mind the shift work and I'm sorry, not 60, but the 24/7, 365, and if you don't mind that and know that you're going to miss some time with the family on holidays and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
there's no other career out there that beats it. There's nothing. And when you actually tell people about it, it's hard to explain, but once people really understand it, they're fascinated by it. I mean, I'm not talking negatively about accountants at all, but I mean, if somebody was to say, I'm an air traffic controller and I'm an accountant, I think a lot of people that wanted to kind of talk to somebody about their job, I think they would always look over to the person like air traffic control. Tell me about that. I do feel like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people don't know about it. And when you kind of explain it and talk about it, they're always kind of like, oh, wow, that's cool. But they always say, isn't that really stressful?
Yes, that's the number
But
one question I get. Is it stressful? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
for the elevator pitch, if I had a 30 seconds to sell somebody on it, it would be you're gonna have a great career that is federal pension. You're a government employee, so it's great there. Your benefits, your pay are gonna be great. You're gonna have job security. It's gonna require you to it's 365, 24 hours a day, and you're gonna miss some time with family, but I still think, and the thing that always this cherry on top is they basically fire you at 56, so you have to be done at 56. So what
Mhm.
other career out there do you have people say like I'm retired, I have to retire at 56? A lot of people are like I'm going to work till I'm 70. I'll have to collect social security before I'll be able to retire, and we don't do that. Like they kick us out, and rightfully so.
Yeah, and also, the minimum retirement age is 50 for us as well.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
if you had 25 years prior to turning 50, you can retire prior to that 50-year mark. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll be 47 and a half, and I can unplug and punch out.
Well, speaking of that, we both obviously is in our back nine of in our career. So, like, what are your plans to retirement once you're done? And how many more years do you have?
So, gosh, it's right at about like 3.5, 4, something like that. I try not to
Okay.
pay attention to it because I feel like it approaches quicker when you don't look at it. Like it's like don't look at the sun, just it'll be there.
Right.
Um, I don't know. I I would love to do something. I would love to do something with my wife and I to do something to figure out some type of passive income, something to do. I don't really know. I haven't ruled out a lot of people go upstairs and do that for a little bit. I
Hmm.
wouldn't rule that out completely. It's a nice little thing to just because it's comfortable. It's recognizable, and you know what I mean. There's something to say about just where the comfort is. It's familiar. But I don't know. I don't know what I'm, and it's like I like that and I don't like it because I like the unknown, but it'll be nice to just focus on something to not have to get up and do anything. Like you get to every day you get to pick like, I'm gonna work on the yard, or I'm gonna go for a run, or it just
Hmm.
to not have a plan at all.
Okay. And are y'all gonna stay in Illinois, or like, do y'all have any plans of possibly maybe going out to like Florida or something like that? So,
I think we would probably like try to winter somewhere.
hmm,
But it really will
yep.
depend on where the girls end up. Like I say this to people, and I don't mean this as like not to sound sexist, but having girls, and you can maybe I speak to this too, but
We are both girl
if I
dads as
had,
well.
yeah, so if I had a boy and a girl or two boys, I'm not like saying I wouldn't want to be by my boys, but I feel as like a male, I'm always like I always want to try to be able to take care of them and be by them. Like I don't want them to ever feel like I'm not there to keep them safe, or um, to know that if they need me, I'm. right there. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And just not to say I wouldn't want to help my boys out, but it's something with, I guess that's just the male nature or something that I don't want to ever not be by them. So I say it all the time to them, like, whatever you do when you grow up, please don't move away from each other. Like, I don't want you to move away at all, but if you do, stay close to each other, because I want to always be by you guys. Like, because if you don't,
Mhm.
mom's gonna have to live by one of you, and I'm gonna have to live by the other. Because I'm like, we can't. One of us has to be there to help you if you need it, and we can swap
Yeah.
out. You know, that's
Okay.
that's my biggest thing.
As far as you mentioned how you and your wife want to have some type of passive income, have y'all ever thought about getting back into the reviews with booze channels that y'all did?
Yeah, we that was during COVID. It was great. I had a good time doing it. We loved it. It was a lot of work. I have actually not, and it has nothing to do with more so public content creation, but I really wanted to get back into um, content creation for the kids, and I mean that from a standpoint of, I always take video and stuff like that, and I haven't really done it as much lately. But it's one of the things I want to get back into. But for the kids, like, I had always thought of doing, almost like, to be able to email them a lot, or to do something that to have something to for them to view or see or read something later on in life. Obviously, my wife and I both lost our fathers a while back, and is something that has left a huge impression on us. And I think that now I have a fear of them not having a way to connect with me later on in life, or to explain things to them, because that's kind of like, for me, I kind of, I wish my dad was here to, like, I have a parenting question, like, I'm struggling with this, like, help me, what did you do? I don't have that connection, and
Mhm.
sometimes I
Yeah.
I really crave that. And the other thing too is, as a parent, you don't always make the right decision, but I feel like, if there's a way to, kind of talk them through my headspace, or what has happened in growing up and just in normal day-to-day stuff, to be able to make, almost like, instead of like a podcast, like a dadcast, to where you have something that I could talk about, like, experiencing the loss of my father, or how I dealt with you when you were going through this trouble in your life, and to be able to, like, have something for them that they wouldn't see for, like, a long time, and then give them access to it at a later date, whether it, you know what I mean? It's something like that.
Mm.
I really crave something that for them, because if something were to happen to me, I would want them to be able to still, like, have that connection with me later on, because that's one thing I still kind of, like, think about interactions with my dad, and it kind of keeps him alive in a different sense, but
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
want them to lose that, like, and I don't know, I would like for them to have something to look back on, and to be able to, because that's something I wish I had more of, pictures and video and audio of my father, because it's something now that I just, like, oh, I really wish I would have, got him more on video, or got him on audio, or took more pictures of him, and because it's just to be able to have that connection, and still kind of, like, have that going on. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah, I think you should go ahead and move forward with it. Try to do some content with your girls,
Yeah.
or do content for them to kind of have access to, later in life, just so that they can,
Hmm.
have always be close to you, no matter where you
Yeah.
are. So yeah, definitely take a leap of faith and do that. So yeah, I'll
Yeah.
definitely go
It's
sign off
something, and
of it.
but then the only thing I worry about too on that is, you know, what CDs, like, were the thing now. You know what I mean? Like, at 8 tracks, a cassette tape, CDs, and then hopefully I put it on some format that I do all this work, and then 25, 30 years from now I'm gone, and then, like, they get, but, like, they can't access it or something. We call it. It
Wow,
was like a fool's errand.
wow.
That'd be my luck.
Wow, yeah, 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 that's true. Yeah, technology is accelerated at such a rate in which I
Yeah.
really can't comprehend how things are going to be another 10, 15 years, like you said. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
But no, I
crazy.
mean,
So
it's so easy to do it. It's so easy to kind of, like, just make and capture stuff, to then I stockpile it. I have tons and tons and tons of, pictures, video, audio. of all of us, just throughout the years. And it's easy to stockpile it and I'll have tons of stuff to go through. But I already have a website that I have for them that I put up and I put videos on with them before the
Mm.
family stuff. And I like having that. And it's almost like I want to feel like I would want to put that on there, but then also have a backup somewhere to, and then they would have access to it. But, and over the years, it just, give them tidbits of stuff that is more family stuff, but have that kind of like
Mm.
sitting there and on the back end if something should happen or whatever. I don't know. It's still kind of like a work in progress.
Okay. Now, you all are avid Disney fanatics, and I don't want to touch on the Disney thing because that could be like an hour-long conversation.
Oh
We
no,
could
you're
probably
good. You're
touch on
good.
that later.
That'd be my
But yeah,
wife. She's like I do like the Disney stuff, but she's the huge, like, she knows it all.
yeah, I haven't even taken that leap of faith yet to like take them yet. I mean, we were going to go this year, but since our 10-year anniversary is this year, we're gonna probably
Hmm.
go next year.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, just yeah, pray for me. But next year, my girls will be 8 and 5, so I think that'll be a great age
Oh,
for them to
perfect.
go for the first
Yes,
time. So yeah, okay.
absolutely. It's an
So yeah,
absolute
man.
great place for them to go.
For parents, especially for our first time, I'm sure it's going to be stressful, but to them, they're gonna have a blast, so, and that's what it's all
Yeah.
about.
Yes,
So
you're right on both accounts.
yeah.
You're spot on.
All right, thanks, man. Thanks for taking the time out to like do this,
Oh,
and
appreciate it.
now I could have asked maybe 10 people in that building to like do this, but being that you had experience with content creation, so you got the best of both worlds of doing it in the military and doing it on the
Hmm.
federal side. So yeah, I thought that this would be a good conversation to have. But yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate you.
No, I feel honored that you'd have me on. I appreciate it. It's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem, man. Yeah, hopefully we'll try to talk about something else later on, and hopefully you start your dad cast, man. I would like to
Yeah,
be
that's
part of
right.
that.
Yeah. I just gotta
So,
hopefully I don't get the dad bod from it too.
oh yeah, you still Pelotoning?
I got the Peloton tonal. I'm big on the tonal. That thing is,
Oh
oh man,
yes,
it's
yes, yes.
awesome.
Yeah, you and
Yeah.
Ryan does that. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm telling you. I like them both. They're both perfect in their own rights. It's just once I get where I want to be on with the tonal stuff body wise, and then it's harder to the bike would kill me on the power zone stuff. So my legs get all destroyed, and then trying to get over on the tonal and do leg day is just like, yeah, right, man, you're old. I'm
Oh,
feeling it.
oh wow, yeah, that's yeah. Like for my age right now, I just turned 43 a couple months ago, and like when I wake up in the morning, I just get like a random ache or random pain, and I'm like, where the
Hmm.
hell did this come from? But it just comes with our
Yeah,
elderly age, so I just gotta
yeah,
expect that. So, but
yeah.
yeah, but
No,
thanks, man.
it's not fun. Yeah, anytime, anytime.
You go into work this weekend?
Well, no, I had today. I had the OT today, and I get my ODO tomorrow. So my 1 day off.
Oh, well, okay. I got tomorrow morning and Sunday morning, then my day off on Monday, and right back at it
Yeah,
Tuesday.
yeah, yeah. There you go.
So, all right, thanks, Jeremy, man. I appreciate you, and
Yeah,
yeah,
no
tell
problem.
tell the wife I said hello, and I'll
I
definitely
sure
see you at
will.
work sometime soon.
All right, we'll see you, man.
All right, see ya. Later.